In this video, I will be demonstrating how to record and edit sentence materials for the development of a sentence matrix test in a language of your choice. Although I will be using English sentences as examples so that we can all follow the process. The video assumes a few things about the viewer, namely that you are an audiology student or an audiologist, or perhaps you work in some other profession, but you have an understanding of the use of speech test materials in the field of audiology, and it also assumes that you have a basic understanding of phonetics and speech science. The video also assumes that you have read a couple of articles so that you understand the type of sentence matrix test that I'm talking about. This one by the ICRA Working Group on Multilingual Speech Tests goes through the basic process of developing speech test materials, and I will be adding a lot of detail and showing you the exact procedure for how to execute those instructions with specific software. It's also helpful if you've read this article. This is by an Australian group of researchers. In this article, they describe the development of a sentence matrix test in Australian English. I'd like to point out that I'm not affiliated with either group of researchers, and I'm simply using their publications as a basis for my own interpretation of a feasible, convenient, and reliable method for developing your own matrix sentence tests in a language in which you need to do speech testing as an audiologist. So I'll be demonstrating the process with a few pieces of software. Adobe Audition. I'm using the Creative Cloud 2017 edition, but that's not necessary that you have the specific edition. Pratt, and I'm going to use the Google Spreadsheets app, but you could also use another program that can edit CSV files. Those are comma-separated value files, which we'll be exporting from Audition and then re-importing. Now I'll show you how to easily install the favorites and the keyboard shortcuts that I've created to make this project a little easier. To do that, you're going to want to open up your Windows File Explorer, go up to the address bar and type in %, app data, %. That'll take you to a hidden folder on your computer, and you'll look for the Adobe folder and Audition, and then you'll look for your current version of Audition, which in my case is 10.0, and I click in there. Now the favorites file, favorites.xml, simply is copied into this folder. It'll ask you if you want to overwrite it. You will overwrite the existing file. The keystrokes matrix.xml file, which is the keyboard shortcuts that I will talk about, will go into the shortcuts folder. Now you can open up Audition. You don't have to do anything with the favorites. Audition will automatically read from that favorites.xml file and load all the favorites that are saved in it. But for the keyboard shortcuts, you'll need to go into the Edit menu down to Keyboard Shortcuts and then select Keystrokes Matrix from the list and hit OK. And then you'll have all the keystrokes that you need. So before we go too much further, let's take a look at how I've set up the user interface in Adobe Audition. The user interface is quite flexible, so you may find that when you open your copy of Audition up, it looks quite different than mine. And you may find it helpful to go ahead and take the time now to set yours up like I have mine, just for the ease of following the process in this video. The key elements of the interface that you want to make sure you have easy access to are the files list here, the markers list here, and the batch processing panel. Pretty much every copy of Audition should have the main editing window visible, although it is possible to hide it. And later on, not in this video, but when you're actually optimizing these speech test materials, you're going to use the amplitude statistics window. So that's why I have that up over here. So we'll go ahead and minimize Audition for the moment. Now let's take a look at a sample sentence matrix. Now the ICRA paper discusses the development of a 5-word by 10 sentence matrix, which would be a full sentence matrix. I'm going to use a practice matrix that only has 5 words by 3 sentences, just to make this video shorter, and I think once you see how I do this, you'll get the idea, and you could really do any size matrix that you want. So what I did is I just came up with 3 names, 3 verbs, 3 quantities, 3 adjectives, and 3 nouns, and I strung them together like so. So I do have 3 basic sentences, but I'm going to use a procedure which is described quite well in the ICRA paper, how to concatenate enough sentences so that I have each co-articulation recorded at least once. So what I mean by that is I'm going to record these 9 sentences. Later on for the test, I may want to use this sentence, Barry likes 12 old deer. Now I didn't record Barry likes 12 old deer. I recorded Barry likes 9 strong deer. However, I can recreate Barry likes 12 old deer as long as I've recorded each co-articulation at least once, which I have here. So, for example, to get Barry likes, I would use the Barry likes from sentence 5. To get likes 12, I would use the likes 12 from sentence 2. 12 old will come from sentence 3, and so on. So the first step in the recording and editing process is to just record this list of sentences. For the small practice matrix I have, it's a list of 9 sentences. For the full matrix, it would be a list of 100 sentences. So I'll go ahead and record those into Audition now. To do that, I'm going to create a new audio file. I'll name it 5x3 example matrix, and a sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz will serve our purposes fine, and we do want to remember what that sample rate is for later on. I just am recording my voice with a single microphone, so I have the channels set on mono, and a bit depth of 16 will be fine. So now I have a blank file in my wave editing window, and I'm ready to record. Simply hit the record button and record the 9 sentences. Roger stole 12 thin rolls. Roger likes 12 strong rolls. Roger wants 12 old rolls. Barry stole 9 thin deer. Barry likes 9 strong deer. Barry wants 9 old deer. Nina stole 5 thin fish. Nina likes 5 strong fish. Nina wants 5 old fish. Okay, and I'm done, so I'll just stop the recording. And I'll just come up here with my cursor and select some of the extra space at the beginning and at the end. And what I end up with is a waveform view of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sentences. Now the spectrogram below the waveform view is going to be very useful because it's going to allow us to see the harmonics of the voiced sections very clearly, and that will really help us to know exactly what part of a particular phoneme we are editing. By default, though, Audition's going to show you a spectrogram ranging the entire frequency response of your recording. So as you can see here, it goes up to 20,000 hertz. Most of the energy in this recording is down here. So I want to zoom in on the frequency range up to 1000 hertz. And to do that, I can just come down here and then right click and drag. That didn't get me exactly where I want, but if I do it again, now I'm more or less in the range that I'm looking to be in. And I can also make the scale a bit more logarithmic, so more space is dedicated to this lower frequency range here. Now let's see what it looks like when I zoom in on a particular word. So that looks pretty good. I will note that you can also right click in here and increase and decrease your spectral resolution. And you can see those have keyboard shortcuts assigned to them, Control Shift up and down arrows. So if I click out of here and I use those keyboard shortcuts, I can change the time resolution. And we want to lean towards getting more time resolution because we need to make very precise edits. One thing that I would really suggest you do before you get going in Audition is learn the keyboard shortcuts for the commands you're going to be using a lot. You can change or customize those keyboard shortcuts. That's in the Edit menu down in Keyboard Shortcuts. And basically any command that's available in Audition is in the list here. You can also search for it. So for example, one command that I'm going to be using a lot is a create subclip marker command. So if I type in subclip, you'll see add subclip marker pops up, and you can see that I assigned the keyboard shortcut F9 to that command. So now we're ready to start cutting up these sentences, and if you've read the papers that I mentioned, you'll understand that we are going to chop up these sentences into pairs of words, and we're going to include the co-articulations in a single segment. And then once we have those all chopped up, we're going to be saving them to individual files, which can be later recombined into 100,000 different sentences. Now there's a couple of possible editing strategies that you could use. One would be to simply edit all the way through your recorded WAV file. And that seems to be the most obvious and easy approach. However, I don't think it'll be the most successful approach for you. And the reason for that is because it's very important to make your cuts in consistent places within the length of the phoneme. So the approach that I recommend is to edit in a way that allows you to monitor your edits as you go along, and I'll show you how that works. So if we go to our sentence list here, the highlighted ones are the ones that I recorded, but I have another list of 4 sentences here, which are sentences that I could create from all of the different pieces that I'm going to cut up out of these 9 sentences here. And so in the recommended approach, you simply make the cuts according to sample sentences that you make up. So we'll start with the first sentence, Roger wants 9 strong rolls. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to take these pairs of words, Roger wants 9, 9 strong, and strong rolls, from different parts of the sentences that we recorded. So let's jump in and try it. For Roger wants, that's going to come from sentence 3. So I'm going to go into Audition and I'm going to locate sentence 3. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut I created to zoom to that selection. And I can see my waveform view and spectrogram view of this sentence Roger wants 12 old rolls. And I can go ahead and listen to that.
Roger wants 12 old rolls.
So the part that I want to cut out is Roger wants.
Roger.
That's Roger, and we'll go a little further.
Roger wants.
And I want to cut it right in the middle of wants. So this is also a point where I diverge from the general instructions given in the ICRA paper. The ICRA paper suggests that you could make the edit right along the co-articulation. And the reason for that is that if I edit in the middle of the central vowel or the nucleus of the second word, the edits are going to be more seamless. In other words, you're not going to be able to detect that there was an edit there. It's just going to sound natural. So I'll listen to this segment that I've highlighted.
Roger wants.
Okay. And I can zoom in here as well. And so I want to take a good look at this part of the spectrogram right here, because what I'm going to do next is create another edit point in another iteration of that phoneme from a different sentence that I recorded. So I'm going to zoom back out and now check this side of it, and I can see that I'm going to just start it just before the voicing starts for the R in Roger. And I'll go ahead and save that by pressing F9, and that shows up as a subclip here. So now I'm going to check back to my sentence list, and we're working on sentence Roger wants 9 strong rolls. So I've got Roger wa, and now I need wants 9, and I'm going to get wants 9 from this sentence, sentence 6. Barry wants 9 old deer. So back in Audition, I'm going to go to sentence 6, and this is where this little timeline comes in very handy, because down here in my main editing view, I want to stay at a pretty tight zoom level so that I can actually see what I'm working with. But here I get the view of the entire file that I recorded, and so I can just move the view around by dragging with the hand this little window. And so I'm going to go, I have sentence 1, 2, 3, and so on, 4, 5, 6. I need sentence 6.
Barry wants 9 old.
Okay, let me zoom out just a little bit. Move back.
Barry wants 9.
So here's the wants, and here's the 9, and I need from aunts to na. So remember, I was just looking at this same word in a different sentence, wants. And so this spectrogram display should look familiar, and it does. And if I can remember correctly, I edited right around this point. So now I'm going to select from here over to a place in 9. And this is where you need to simply identify a consistent landmark, but it's helpful to have a rule of thumb. So one rule of thumb would be to edit right in the middle of the voiced consonant. So you can see that the voiced consonant probably starts here and goes to here. And so I could just shoot for the middle point there.
Wants 9. Wants 9.
Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit F9 and save it. So next, 9 strong. I'm going to get 9 strong from sentence 5. Move back to sentence 5. I'll zoom out a little bit.
Barry likes 9 strong deer. 9 strong. 9 strong.
So in this case, we have a voiced consonant, the ng of strong, but you can see where the vowel ends because these higher harmonics do not continue into the nasal consonant. So if I want to go for the midpoint, I could say that the vowel starts here and ends here, and I'll shoot for the midpoint there. And I'll save that as a subclip. Strong rolls we will get from sentence 2. Roger likes 12 strong rolls. So we'll go back to sentence 2. Zoom out a bit here.
Roger likes 12 strong rolls.
So this is the strong rolls part. So I'm going to go again for the midpoint, and then now I'm going all the way to the end. And let's confirm.
Strong rolls.
And I'll save that. So I've done one complete sentence. Roger wants 9 strong rolls. And I can go ahead and check my work so that I don't go too far having made a mistake, because it's always possible to make a mistake and make an edit that's not really going to work. So I'll go ahead and zoom out here again to prepare myself for the next sentence. But before we do that, we can quickly audition our cuts by doing the following. Select the subclips in their numeric order by pressing Control and then clicking the mouse and selecting. And when I have them all selected, right-click, insert into multi-track, and we'll create a new multi-track session called Auditioning the Edits. And again, we're just using mono files, so I'll set that to mono, same sampling rate. And now it's asking me, do I want to add all the selected files to the same track or put them each in its own track? And I want it to be all in the same track so that I get something like this. So I've just sequenced those segments together back to back, and if I play it,
Roger wants 9 strong rolls. Roger wants 9 strong rolls.
So what we're hearing there is each segment concatenated like it should be. However, we're hearing a click there. And that's not a bad thing. The reason that's happening is because we did not edit at 0 crossings, and we did not overlap these segments. Later on, we will be applying 35 millisecond ramps or fades to each of these in order to smooth out those clicks. But for the purposes of auditioning, you just want to hear a nice flow to the sentence. Sounds natural, with the exception of that click.
Roger wants 9 strong rolls. Roger wants 9 strong rolls.
Now, this strong, still hearing a slight artifact there. So in that case, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to change the cut points. Now, I don't have to delete these subclips. I could do that and just do it from scratch. But I'm going to go to the second to last one, subclip 5. So you can see there's not much of a format transition here. These harmonics are pretty flat. Let's take a look at what it's transitioning to. And if anything, I think that this may just start a little bit early. So I'm going to move this back. I can see a little bit of energy between the harmonics there. So let me take another look at subclip 5. So I can move that one in a little bit. Same energy between the harmonics. And I can just go back to the multi-track view, delete all of this. And then I can click these again and try it again. Now, once I've created that multi-track session, it's going to show up in this menu, and so I can just say insert into this multi-track session.
Roger wants 9 strong rolls. Roger wants 9 strong rolls.
And now that sounds much better to me. I don't detect any sort of glitch in this last edit here. So that's how you would correct a edit as you go. It would be much more difficult to do that if you simply went through the entire recording pair by pair of words, and that's why I recommend this approach. So I'm going to go ahead and finish marking up the rest of this WAV file, and I will speed up the video and not narrate it, but just so you can see the process, how it plays out.
Barry likes 9 strong deer. Barry likes 9. Barry likes 12. Likes 12. Old. Nine old deer. Old deer. Old deer. Barry likes 12 old deer. Barry likes 12 old deer. Nina stole 5 thin. Roger stole 12. Roger stole 12. 12. 12. 12. Thin. 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 Thin fish. thin fish, thin fish. Nina stole 12 thin fish. Nina stole 12 thin fish. Thin roll, thin roll, thin rolls, thin roll, thin roll, thin roll. Thin, 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 thin fish, thin fish. Nina stole 12 thin fish.
So at this point we have this sentence somehow did not get any markers. Number 8 is missing 1, and number 4. So 4, 8, and 9. So we can make a couple of more sentences. So let's start with Nina wants 12 old fish. We also need parts from 4 and 8. And number 4, we need the beginning. And in number 8, we need the end. So we could do Barry stole 12 strong fish. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Nina wants.
Nina wants 5. Nina wants 5. Nina wants 5. Nina wants 5.
So this is going to be a tricky one. So I'm going to say starting from about here to here, I'm looking for the midpoint, and we'll put it right there and then go back to the beginning.
Nina wants.
Now we need wants 12, and we'll take that from sentence 3.
Roger wants 12 old. Roger wants 12 old rolls. Roger wants 12. Wants 12. Roger wants 12.
And that one I already had as subclip 22. So we'll just make a notation here. 31 to 22. 12 old is actually going to be from that same sentence, sentence 3. So then that's subclip 9. And then old fish is going to come from, again, our last sentence, number 9.
Old fish. Old fish.
So that would be subclip 32. But let me just check this cut point here.
Old fish.
So we can see a nice U-shaped formant here. And let's see if we edit it at the same point in subclip 9. There it is.
12 old roll.
So you see, we don't really see the U-shaped figure there because we're coming and going to different phonemes, but you can see a little bit of a dip, and I would say that it's a little bit earlier here. So we may want to move these over just a tad to make it match up better.
Old rolls. Old rolls. Old fish. Old fish.
Okay, Barry stole 12 strong fish.
Barry stole 9. Stole 12 thin.
Subclip 12. Roger. Barry stole 12. 12 strong.
Strong roll. 12 strong.
Subclip 21. And strong fish. Number 8.
Five strong fish. Strong fish.
Okay, so now we can fill in this gap here. And
Nina wants 5 old fish. Nina wants 5 old fish.
we actually have 2 segments here, but we'll just kind of cheat a little bit, and this looks like a pretty
5 old
straightforward.
fish.
So we'll cut it there. So that'll be one subclip. And then this one will be the other one. And then we had number 4. We're just missing this little piece here.
Barry stole 9 thin deer. Barry stole 9 thin deer.
Oh, we actually had 2 pieces there as well.
Stole 9. Stole 9. Stole 9.
So this one is not as straightforward. So I'm going to find another place where we had 9. And I'm going to pick the one here, 9 strong, because we have a similar place of articulation in the following word. So 9 thin and 9 strong. The diphthong in 9 should be going to approximately the same place of articulation in the next word. So I think it'll look similar. So let's go to number 5.
9 strong. 9 strong. 9 strong.
Okay.
9.
All right, so let's take a good look at that. And I'm noticing there's a little dip here in these higher harmonics.
Sol 9. Sol 9.
And I think that's probably the same as the dip, although it doesn't really look the same. But we'll cut it there and then fill in this piece.
Sol 9.
All right, so, and that was so let's audition Nina wants 12 old fish. So we need 31, 22, 9, and 32.
Nina wants 12 old fish. Nina wants 12 old fish.
And so for this 5x3 matrix, we've now marked up the entire file. We should have 9 times 4, 36 different markers. Unfortunately, because the way Audition numbers their subclips and they don't start over at 1 once you delete subclip 1, unless you go straight through 1 to 36, it's not going to be super easy to tell from looking at the list. So we'll just count here. Basically, we want to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Move on to the next group of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have our 36. So now we have this entire recording chopped up into segments, and it's time to export it. Before we do that, if you didn't already load the favorites file that includes this favorite, which is a custom one that I made called 35 millisecond fades, you should load that now, unless you're prepared to create it on your own. But it's essentially a 35 millisecond linear fade on both sides of the clip. So a fade in at the beginning and a fade out at the end. They're both 35 milliseconds long if you want to create that favorite on your own. So exporting is fairly straightforward. We're just simply going to hit Control A to select all the subclips. We'll right click and we're going to export the selected markers to CSV. Importantly, we need to change the time format to samples because we want to just get a single integer number in our spreadsheet. So once you've exported the CSV file, you'll need to upload that to Google Drive. And then you can open it. And you'll want to open that with Google Sheets. And Google Sheets will recognize the tab separated values and put them into a spreadsheet for you. At this point, what we need to do is subtract a little bit and add a little bit from these values. So what we have here is the name of the subclip, their start times, and their durations. So here's why we need to do this. In Audition, we've selected this time region and we've created that as a subclip. But when we finally export them from Audition, we're going to be applying fades, perhaps from here to here and from here to here. But when these segments get recombined, we actually need to overlap, say, from here to here. So we need to expand the time selection out by a fixed amount that corresponds with the time of our fade. So because our fade is 35 milliseconds, we want that to happen at the midpoint. And so we'll expand the time selection by 17.5 milliseconds on each side. So we need to subtract 17.5 milliseconds from the start time. And then because now we've moved that start time back, we need to add 35 milliseconds to the duration. But we have these expressed as samples. So this is where it comes in handy to do a little bit of sampling rate math. So if we have our sampling rate over here, 44,100, then we have 35 milliseconds and we have 17.5 milliseconds. So what is 35 milliseconds in samples? That would be 35 divided by 1,000. So that converts the milliseconds to seconds times 44,100. And then we actually want that to be an integer. So we'll go up here and we'll just add the integer function to that whole thing, and that rounds it up. And then same thing here, an integer of 17.5 divided by 1,000 times 44,100. So we're going to subtract 771 samples, and we're going to add 1,543 samples to the duration. So to do that, I'm going to copy these values, copy, and then I'm going to use the paste special paste values only command. Then over here, this is going to equal G2 minus 771. And we'll go ahead and apply that all the way down. And then this column will equal H2 plus 1543. And we'll apply that all the way down. So what we have here is our original start and duration times, and what we have here is our new expanded ones, and we're just going to copy these values and paste them as values. Again, that's paste special values only, or you can use Control-Shift-V to paste the values in. Now what we have to do is get rid of all this extra stuff we created, because the file needs to be in the exact same format that Audition exported it in, which, as I mentioned, was a tab separated value file. Now when we go to download as, we have the option for a tab separated value file, and that's what we're going to choose. But notice that Google Sheets uses a different extension, a .tsv instead of a .csv. We're going to use the tab separated values because otherwise Audition won't recognize it. When we go through that little process with Google, our file name gets kind of screwed up, so we're just going to call this expanded markers, and we need to change the file extension to .csv, otherwise Audition won't recognize it. So we'll say yes. All right, we go back into Audition now, and we're going to delete all of these old subclip markers and then import markers from file, and we'll go to expanded markers and open, and just like that we have all the markers in almost the same place, just offset by those 17.5 millisecond values. So now we are ready to export these, but while we export it, we're going to apply a 35 millisecond fade to each end of the file. So this is a two-step process. First, we have to export audio of the selected range markers. So we'll just check sample rate is the same, bit depth is the same. So we will export. So now in this project folder, I have all of these small wave files which I just exported. So I need to select all of those. And then in Audition, I'm going to drag those into the batch process window. Okay. And now I'm going to apply 35 millisecond fades using this favorite drop-down menu. And I'm going to make sure the export button's checked. We'll go to the export settings. So we can use a prefix if we want to keep them together, like Q, and then at the end of the file name, Audition will append the phrase 35 millisecond ramps. And we can choose a different location or say same as source file location, and we will hit OK. And then we just need to hit run, and it shouldn't take too long. And so now in this folder we have a new set of files with the prefix Q with 35 millisecond fades, and those files could be recombined. So now that we've exported all of our clips with crossfades applied to them, we can go ahead and audition how they would splice back together. Surprisingly, we're not going to be able to accomplish that in Adobe Audition. As of 2017, they have not implemented a feature to string together a bunch of clips with automatically having crossfades applied. However, we can use Pratt to do that. So I've pulled in a bunch of the clips that I just exported using the open read from file command. And once I've got them in the order I need, I can just select all of them and click Combine concatenate with overlap, and we'll use a 17.5 millisecond overlap. That's half the length of the crossfade. Click OK, and that'll create a new clip called Sound Chain, and then we can just come up here and click play.
Roger wants 9 strong rolls. Barry likes 12 old deer. Nina stole 12 thin fish. Roger likes 5 thin deer. Roger stole 5 strong fish. Barry wants 5 old fish. Nina likes 9 old rolls.
So that's where we'll wrap up this video. The next step, of course, will be to name all of those files according to the convention specified in the ICRA documents. I hope that you found this video helpful and informative, and I wish you luck making speech test materials in any language that you need to.